Welcome back to class. I'm here to give you another lesson in Smarksmanship. I'm the Smark, and the WWE currently has a problem with its women's division. I have a solution. But before we look at the present, let's take a quick look back at its history. Ladies wrestling began back during World War II, and I'm sure you're familiar with folks like the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. But I know that you're unfamiliar with talent like Ella Waldeck, Ida Mae Martinez, and Penny Banner. Like how most of the business began, it started in carnivals and slowly evolved into the arenas, where they had more high-profile matches than the men. It was booked very similar to male matches at the time, territorially. But of course, due to societal views of women, the pay scales weren't even, despite not being legal in every state. And these women would fight! Head scissor takeovers, punches directly to the breadbasket, huge body slams. They would be tough in and outside of the ring. They had to be. They'd probably kick your ass. With Moolah holding the NWA World's Championship, women's wrestling kind of stayed at a steady pace. There was her feud with Wendy Richter, but male promoters started to thinking there should be a little more sex appeal in women's wrestling. One of these promoters, David McLean, decided to hold a casting call for Glow. This was a scripted serialized show featuring comedic sketches, advertisements, but it all came back and centered around professional wrestling. It was a bigger success than initially expected. These women showed up to an audition trying to get into the entertainment industry any way they could, and they ended up becoming professional wrestlers. They were trained by Mondo Guerrero, for God's sake. So let's get a little modern. The WWF Women's Championship was vacated in 1990, brought back when it was won by Medusa or Alundra Blaze, depending on your preference, and then vacated again in 1995 when she defected back to WCW. So here begins the history that most of us remember. In 1998, the Women's Championship was brought back and hotly contested between Jacqueline, Sable, and Ivory. Fun note, Ivory was the only wrestler from Glow to make it to a legitimate federation. In my opinion, she's always been one of the greatest and will go down in history as one of the greatest. WWF went to certain extremes when it came to the sex appeal on their attitude-laden product. WCW had the Nitro Girls, but it was nothing compared to WWF standards. Actually, in a recent development, Vince McMahon said that Ted Turner once gave him a call during the Monday Night War and said the only reason you won is because, quote, you showed more of the tit. Uncle Ted, the second renaissance of women's wrestling began. Here's when we started seeing talent like Trish Stratus, Lita, Victoria, Molly Holly, Jazz, Stacy Keibler, Tori Wilson, even Moolah and Mae Young got involved. It's this period that makes wrestling fans miss top-notch talent facing off in high-profile matches. Here, go to the network, and I know you have the network, and look up when Trish Stratus and Lita main evented Raw. Just top-notch match. Seemingly due to the brand split and the wealth of talent, in 2008, the Divas Championship was created so that the female talent on SmackDown would have a chance to achieve championship glories. For some reason or another, WWE decided to deactivate their years' worth of history-laden title for this new belterfly. There have been ebbs and flows. The majority of the time, the women's matches serves as a break in intensity right before a big main event, so that the audience can sort of come back from the edge of their seat. More often than not, it becomes a bathroom break with no discernible reason as to why the crowd should stick around. Despite that stigma, WWE decided to take a look into the reality of what it was to be a WWE diva by creating a reality show. Total Divas, to its credit, has created new WWE fans who turned over from the reality show to the weekly product. As a result of the show, however, there is a rumor mind you, that all talent associated with Total Divas, to avoid confusion between the record date and the live nature of the show, they're not allowed to carry the title. Again, this is a rumor, but if it were to be true, the amount of divas that are allowed to vie for the championship is getting slimmer and slimmer as the amount of seasons goes on and on. There are three main Divas storylines currently in WWE right now, and that's anything associated with Total Divas, the Nikki and Brie and Stephanie storyline, though Stephanie's not kind of in it right now, and seemingly third in line, the Divas Championship. However, those of you who know the show, watch the show, know that one of my first lessons was about NXT. Some say that the best place for women's wrestling is TNA, but I say it's NXT, and you should go back and watch that video so you can learn yourself a little bit more about what I say in the women's division. Here's the critical thinking part of today's lesson. If the women's division on the main roster is so overinflated, underutilized, and doesn't get the respect that it deserves, what benefit does it serve the developmental talent down in NXT to come up to the main roster? What do they have to gain? Every once in a while, the fans will get lucky and we'll receive talent like AJ Lee, Naomi, Natalya, Paige, Emma. Wait a minute, let me go back to Paige for a second. Her arrival and subsequent feud with AJ Lee was great. It may have fallen off a little bit in recent times, but you would always expect an excellent match out of them because they're two of the best in the business. But now with Paige and Alicia joining the cast of the reality show, it doesn't look like there are too many women left not involved with Total Divas who can actually fight for the title. Again, rumor. Here is my suggestion to fix this. Just reinstate the Women's Championship. There is so much room for original programming on the network, and I know you have the network, for a live women's wrestling show, and we can call it the Total Divas division. That way, women associated with the show, again, rumors, can win the title. That way, you bring the stories all the way back around, and it's always about wrestling. The Women's Championship can have an entirely different cast of women vying for that title. Counting the NXT titles, men have 6 opportunities to hold a championship title, while women have 2. You bring back the Women's Championship, it becomes the workhorse title. Divas Championship turns into an equivalent of a TV championship recognized with that sort of branding. Have more avenues for the wrestlers you have, and it keeps things more interesting for the fans and the talent. And they are wrestlers, at least they're supposed to be. I know that this whole diva connotation comes from the sort of branding that they have to make their own sort of unique title, like the male equivalent would be superstars. But diva, it just never rubbed me the right way. Diva was originally used in the world of opera to represent a celebrated female singer, not Jillian Hall. Today, it's more has the sort of feeling of like a female hustler. I know that's the Urban Dictionary definition, so I'll go with the Merriam-Webster. They currently define diva as a famous and successful woman who is also attractive and fashionable. I know that society's changing, but if/when I have a daughter, I would more prefer she had a role model like your Trish Stratus's, your Litas, your Victorias, your AJ Lees. That's it for class, everybody. Your homework today, go to Netflix and watch both documentaries that I sort of pulled a lot of this information from. Lipstick and Dynamite and Glow. They're both documentaries about women's wrestling, and they go into depth about the 50s version and the 80s version. And then I know that this was really fast. It's just supposed to be like a small Reader's Digest version of history. There's a lot more out there. There's a lot more to talk about. I just wanted to be super general because of the whole Total Divas thing. We have merch now, so if you want to show off your grades in the class, why don't you go to our Spreadshirt store? The link's down below. You can pick up a couple of things, help us out, help yourself out. And remember, if you keep coming to class, you someday might be able to get an A+ in Smarksmanship. Class dismissed.